Chef Jorge Castaneda is an executive chef in the Portland area. He has over 25 years culinary arts experience and over 5 years experience as a teaching chef. In this video, Chef Jorge prepares the perfect meatloaf. A list of ingredients appears at the end of the video.
First of all, I'm going to put the vegetables into the meatloaf. The onion and the celery is basically the only vegetables there are. The problem with a lot of meatloafs though is that if you just chop this stuff up and put it in the mix and then you bake the meatloaf, you'll get a watery mess at the end. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cook them first. But let me process them and get them out of the way. I'm just going to line them up like this and get them a little thinner. Just a little thinner. Okay, so turn that around, put everything back like this, and once again, and once you learn this, you can actually not look at your fingers while you're doing it because your technique is safe. Right? Got a couple of refugees there, little leftover pieces of celery. What I like about Chinese cleavers is that they really are good for picking stuff up after you cut it. I most often use a French style knife, usually French style knives that are made in Japan. Okay, onion. Onion has a root side. That's the side that we're going to work on first. We want to put the knife right in the center of the root and cut through it. Why? Because the root's going to hold all our pieces together. When we go to dice it, it won't fall apart in our hands. There are a certain number of different ways of doing this. There's the classical French way, which is taught in culinary schools in French, which involves standing here and cutting down each one. I do that sometimes, but I have another technique, especially with an onion as long as this, that works really well. I'm going to land my knife on the back edge, but I'm going to keep it at this angle at all times. Why? Because I don't want to cut that root. That root is what's holding my onion together. So if you see, I'm just going to go like this. Right? Okay, so I've already cut down this way. Now I'm going to go horizontally. Just a couple, not very many. Right? And then I could just go like this for the rest. And the technique that I'm using behind the blade is the same as before. Right? And I have a few big pieces there at the end, but you don't want to serve the root to anybody. This part right here, you throw that away. Okay? Or if you're really hardcore and you cook all the time, you should make stock out of it. You should keep it. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is get the glaze on, which is pretty simple, standard, old school, traditional American glaze. We have a cup of ketchup, right? Get on the fire, but turn the fire down a little bit. Don't want to scorch all that. I also have in this, I have some red wine vinegar here, actually apple cider vinegar, works better. And I have some of this hot sauce, which is, recipe calls for Tabasco, but I like this Mexico Lindo habanero hot sauce, a little hotter and also a little bit more flavorful. Not crazy though. I threw it in here, I threw the vinegar in here because now I could get all this extra ketchup off, right? That would have remained in the measuring cup, and I could get it all in there. And now I have a fairly clean measuring cup. Okay. So all I have in there is vinegar, hot sauce, and ketchup. The final ingredients are a bit of coriander. You can see the amounts and the recipe list later. And a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Pretty simple stuff here. All I have to do now is mix it up. Break the brown sugar up. My baking friends would probably say I should have sifted it, but no. How about that? And I just want to can't stand this kind of stuff here. Okay, so that goes on the back burner. Let it heat up. Over here, I have a large saute pan, a little oil, and I have vegetables that are going to go in my meatloaf. Once again, I'm going to put these in here because once I cook them out, all the moisture that's inside of them will evaporate. They'll get nice and tight, and they won't make my meatloaf watery and crumbly. Well, we'll see when we finish it if it's watery and crumbly, right? So I have oil heating up here. I'm going to turn this down to very low because that just needs to reduce. It has to blend and reduce down so it's a little drier and becomes more of a crystal glaze on there. As you can see in my pan over here now, there is what we call convection going on, and I'm going to go ahead and start. Celery is the hardest, the most fibrous thing I have, so it's going to go in first to help break it down at the same rate as the onion. Pretty simple. And those long pieces I'll just break like that. Okay. So I got the celery started. I want to see a little translucence. You know, it's going, right now it's still hard, but it should be beginning to become translucent, or otherwise light. In other words, light can pass through it. Okay? The second I see any color forming anywhere, I'm going to go with my onion. Onion goes in. Same thing at this point. Anytime I'm cooking like this, it's not a lot of salt, it's not for seasoning at all, but a little salt to draw out the moisture. That's all. And it makes a much more seasoned product at the end if you salt all the way through. Now, a couple long pieces of onion there, but hell, this is home style, right? All right. I need for the onions to break down a little bit. Once I do, I'll add this chopped garlic. It's chopped a lot smaller, so it's obviously going to cook really fast. I don't want to put it in right now, it'll burn. When it starts to burn, I'll turn around and add some of this tomato juice, which is actually V8, getting even more flavor into my meatloaf, and some dry thyme. The dry thyme goes in last because the moisture from this is going to rehydrate it. And it's also going to absorb the excess moisture from the juice. Color there, and I don't want anything to burn. I'm going to turn the fire down, a little bit more oil, and my garlic. Make sure that gets permeated with oil, and I actually grind garlic and put a little oil to store it. So there's already oil in the garlic. All right, so now as the garlic browns or cooks, it'll mellow out a little bit and it'll be good. As you can see, I'm beginning to get color again, right? You can see that things are getting a little darker, so we don't want to burn anything. That's why I'm keeping everything moving. And essentially, I'm smelling the garlic. I know what cooked garlic smells like. And when I smell the right smell, bam. Oh, I'm gonna get sued. I said bam. And here's my thyme. And then this gets mixed up and reduced. Just cook it down a little bit more till all the liquid disappears and it's a little bit darker. After that, I'm going to take this and basically put it in my refrigerator until it's cold. I want to introduce all the ingredients into the meatloaf cold, because if I don't introduce it cold, it'll break down, it'll actually start melting the fat and the meatloaf won't hold together, it'll crumble apart. So everything that goes in it must be cold. Now if you have your own meatloaf recipe, that should be enough to make your meatloaf better if you're not doing this already. You don't have to follow mine, just do things right. Okay, that, in Cuba we would call that a sofrito. But what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to put it on a plate and cool it. And then go around mixing my, mix up my meatloaf, pan it, and put it in the oven, and we should be good. So, how do you measure 2/3 of a cup of saltines? Do you have any idea? Any idea at all?
No.
No, me either.
I mean, well, you grind it up into into dust and then...
Yeah, but then what if I grind up a lot of stuff and then I have to throw it
I
away?
think you just kind of guesstimate, as they say.
You got it. Okay, so I got my saltines. Just pulse them. In this bowl, I whisked some egg, which is normal. You always see that in meatloaf, along with breadcrumbs, right? But just to get a little weird, we added gelatin, which will make the meat moist. It'll keep it moist. It'll make the texture of the meatloaf better, smoother, harder. And we also added some chicken broth for savoriness and also to have something to develop the gelatin in. So I have that in there. I would let that sit for 5 minutes so that the gelatin blooms. We've done that already, right? So I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients. I have my soy sauce for even more what we call umami, which is savoriness in meat. Mushrooms have umami, meat has umami. Just regular kosher salt and pepper there. And finally, my little envelope here of Dijon mustard. Yeah, just put it in plastic wrap so I could get it out of the portion cup easy. All right, so next I'm gonna have my saltines that I ground up earlier, and this is very fatty beef and this is very lean beef. Fat is crucial in forming the structure of a good meatloaf, so I mixed both of them together to round out the flavor, not make it too greasy, and still have a nice texture along with the gelatin. And then we just basically blend it together. Pretty simple, no? One thing that now I add to make the meatloaf better, okay, we have the sofrito, which I cooled down. Okay, and we have our grated cheese, cheddar and jack, that's gonna hold the thing together as well and give it a little bit of savoriness. Gonna make it a little better. Cheesy meatloaf, right? All right, so now mix it all together. It's important that everything is cold. That's why I froze the cheese. That's why I cooled down the vegetables that I sauteed earlier. If it feels cold, you're good. It feels plenty cold. Now, I have notice I'm kneading this like if it was bread dough, sort of. But it's probably the best technique. Everything is mixed together well. I'm gonna put on another glove to form it. And I'm gonna bake this meatloaf, or roast it, if you will, on a sheet pan lined with aluminum foil and a cooling rack also lined with aluminum foil. Some holes punched in it so the grease flows down and so nothing sticks. Some Pam, right? So here's my meatloaf. Just gonna drop it on here like this. Now, this is like you're a sculptor, sort of. My next step is to smooth the outside of it. Now, basically the way we do this is like that. I'm just sealing off all the holes here. Same thing I did with my hands, but this is a little bit more precise, and I could get, as you can see, a straight line there, a straight line there. And I know people think straight lines are obsessive compulsive. Trust me, I'm not obsessive compulsive. I don't really care about a lot of stuff like that. The reason we want uniform pieces, we want it to cook evenly, that's all. Pretty simple. That's our meatloaf. Now we're ready to go in the oven. And here's the finished loaf going into my oven, which I preheated to 375. And we're gonna pull this thing out and glaze it. All right, it looks lovely. What I'm happiest about right now is that there are no cracks or fissures in it. That's because I did all that padding, you know, earlier. So pretty simple. This is our mixture from before. And we're just gonna spread about half of it on. I'm gonna put it in for 5 more minutes. I'm gonna pull it out, put the other half of it on, so that I get a nice, almost shellac-like coating. And then we'll let it rest for 20 minutes, and then I can slice it without it breaking up. Okay? And back in the oven we go. So I'll think about that, but right off the top of my head, all my years of experience will tell me that the best wine to serve with this meatloaf would be Schlitz malt liquor. That's the truth. There's no wine that would go with this.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it has ketchup and it's loaded with sugar. Any wine is going to taste worse in comparison. It also has vinegar in it, loaded with acidity. Makes wine taste bad. Beer, on the other hand, perfect, good. Three ounces Monterey Jack cheese, shredded and frozen. 1 tablespoon butter, melted. 1 medium onion, fine diced. 1 medium rib of celery, fine diced. 1 clove of garlic, minced. 2 tablespoons of thyme, dry. 1/4 cup of tomato juice. 1/2 cup chicken stock. 2 large eggs, beaten. 1/2 teaspoon of gelatin powder. 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard. 2/3 cup saltines. 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper ground. 1 pound of lean ground sirloin, and 1 pound of fatty ground chuck. For the glaze, you'll need 1/2 cup of ketchup, 1 teaspoon Tabasco, or you can substitute any hot sauce you like, 1/2 teaspoon coriander ground, and 3 tablespoons of brown sugar.